Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's workshop with Jeremy Woolstenhulme, presented by OSTER and Kjos Australia. My name is James Rozario, and I'm the National President of OSTER, the Australian Strings Association. As an organisation, we strive to represent string teachers, string performers, and string makers around the country. We hold events throughout the year, most of which are run through our individual state chapters. Our events range from teacher workshops to conferences, new music reading days, masterclasses, orchestra workshops. The list goes on and on. As well, we tour overseas guests regularly around the country. Our members are able to tour overseas as part of an orchestra, and every 3 years we hold a national conference. Clearly, this last year has been very challenging, but it's been really exciting to see OSTER embrace Zoom presentations, and we have been able to welcome people from all over the country to our online events, making us a truly national organisation. Our next national conference will be the 1st to the 4th of July in 2022. That's next year, and it will be held in Melbourne. The conference was going to be this year, but clearly interstate and overseas travel has made it very challenging. I hope to see many of you in person next year at the conference, and more detailed information will be released later this year. And this leads to our Vibrato Workshop today and our presenter, Jeremy Woolstenhulme. I'm so pleased to welcome and introduce Jeremy today, and I'm excited to say that he is going to be one of our presenters at the OSTER National Conference next year. I'm sure that many of you have come across Jeremy's books and compositions, and I'll remind you that they are available for purchase around Australia from wherever you buy your music, whether it's online or at your local music shop. Jeremy received his Bachelor of Music Education degree from Brigham Young University in 2000 and a Master of Arts degree in cello performance from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas in 2005. He currently serves as the orchestra director at Northview High School in Fulton County, Georgia, and taught for 20 years previously in the Clark County School District of Las Vegas, Nevada. He has traveled with his orchestra to London, Washington, DC, Boston, San Diego, and New York. His orchestra was selected to play at the 2008 and 2017 Midwest Clinic, and in 2010, 11, 15, and 18 at the National AUSTA Conference. With a steadily growing number of original and arranged works to his credit, Jeremy is a commissioned and published composer, many which have been performed around the world. His works have consistently been included as J.W. Pepper Editor's Choice Selections and can be found on festival repertoire lists. He is co-author with Terry Shade and Wendy Barden of the highly acclaimed string method, String Basics. His specialty is to write for middle and high school orchestras, where he composes to teach, challenge, and inspire. He has served as clinician and guest conductor throughout the United States, Canada, Australia, and the People's Republic of China. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, and welcome to Jeremy.
Well, thank you, James. I'm really excited to be here, and I really hope that things work out for me to come down to Melbourne and do some clinics and workshops and meet my Australian friends. Today, we're going to talk about vibrato, and I'm going to share my screen here. What you're going to be looking at is called the Interactive Practice Studio. And what that is it's a virtual book. And what Kjos has done is embedded a lot of resources like video and audio within the book. So I'm just going to click here and open up the Vibrato Basics book. And you'll notice here at the top, there's a video icon. And I'm going to click this video icon, and hopefully this will introduce some of the concepts I'll be talking about in the Vibrato Basics. Hi, I'm Jeremy Woolstenhulme, the author of Vibrato Basics. Today, I'd like to talk about page 2 and 3 for violins and violas. There's a couple of really important concepts on these 2 pages. And the first concept is that the violins and violas should be able to support the instrument between their jaw and their shoulder. They shouldn't try and hold up the instrument with their left hand. The left hand needs to be free to do the vibrato motion. There are 2 hinges that we will choose to use for vibrato. If you are choosing a wrist vibrato, you will use the wrist. If you are choosing arm vibrato, you will bend from the elbow. To facilitate this, if we're choosing wrist, we'll move the wrist to the upper bow of the instrument. This will isolate the arm and make sure that only the wrist is moving for the vibrato motion. Watch as I demonstrate line 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, rest, 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 rest. 1, 2, 3, 4, rest, 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 rest. Did you notice how I said the counts along with the music? This is really important to keep the class together and make sure that you are rhythmically accurate. Now watch. If I am going for arm vibrato, I want to place my arm in the middle of the neck right here, and I will go back and forth to the body of the violin and to the scroll, and the elbow is the hinge that's moving. Watch as I demonstrate line 3. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and rest, 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 rest. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and rest, 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 rest. It's important that you don't combine both hinges. In other words, the wrist and the elbow should not be moving together. You need to decide which vibrato you're trying and then only use that hinge. So for example, wrist, upper bow. Arm, middle, make sure you're using the appropriate hinge. So one thing to understand about vibrato is it is a process. It is not something that can be taught in one day or one lesson or 1 week lesson. Yes, some kids take to it so naturally like a duck to water, but most of the kids, it's consistency, consistently working on the vibrato motion. Now, like I mentioned in the video, to start this off, I would only do 5 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day to get the proper hinge working. I give the violins and violas in class a chance to choose for themselves if they want to try wrist or arm vibrato. Now, when I walk around the classroom, I can tell which vibrato they've selected. So if the student is right here against the upper bow of the instrument, they've chosen the wrist vibrato, and I expect the movement to be right here. Now, the reason I come and bring my whole arm to this side of the violin is that I want them to support the instrument between their jaw and their shoulder. If they're not supporting the instrument here and they're squeezing the neck right, this is the reason why they can't do vibrato. They're squeezing the neck. So I want to be able to make sure that the students are secure right here between the jaw and the shoulder. So if they're choosing arm vibrato, they're going to make sure that there's no movement in the wrist, and they're going to go back and forth 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and like that. So that is the first page. The second page, no bow. Basically, they're doing rhythm exercises, making sure they're either moving the elbow or the wrist. Like I said, we isolated the wrist up here against the upper bow, or we're just using the elbow. For some reason, kids try and use both hinges, or they go sideways like this. So when I'm walking up and down the aisles, checking on the students, I want to make sure that they're using the proper hinge. Now, some students, they'll be up against the upper bow of the instrument, but it doesn't seem like they come very naturally to the wrist. So I'll tell them, hey, why don't you slide back and try the arm vibrato? Or if they're here trying the arm vibrato, but their wrist is really rocking, I'll say, hey, let's move up to the upper bow and let's try the wrist vibrato. So the question is, what are the basses and cellos doing? So let's look at that. So while the violins, violas are rocking their wrist or arm for vibrato, this is what the cello bass are doing. Welcome, friends, to Vibrato Basics. I'm the author, Jeremy Woolstenhulme, and today I'd like to talk about the cello bass book, pages 2 and 3. On page 2 and 3, we're going to simulate the vibrato motion by folding our arm in half and taking the tips of the fingers and touching lightly against the collar bone. What we'll do is we'll rock the wrist in an arch shape. Let me demonstrate number 3. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and rest, 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 rest. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and rest, 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 rest. The movement that you want to avoid is rocking the forearm or just the upper arm, but we want to rock the whole arm like this. Let me do another demonstration. Here's the next page, number 6. These are triplets. 1 lolly, 2 lolly, 3 lolly, 4 lolly. Rest, 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 rest. 1 lolly, 2 lolly, 3 lolly, 4 lolly. Rest, 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 rest. If you're a bass player, I recommend that pages 2, 3, 4, and 5, you use a stool so that you can balance your bass properly. Now, if we go down to line 4, what you're going to see is some student demonstration videos embedded here. So,
one and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4.
Now, if you'll indulge me, this is my daughter. She's a senior and she attends the school that I teach at. She's in my orchestra.
1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4.
What's funny about that is that she has been in my orchestra since she was in grade 6. She was in my middle school. Then when she went on to high school, I was the youth symphony conductor, so she couldn't get away from me. And then we moved to Georgia. Now she's back in my high school orchestra. So the poor thing. But so while the violins and violas are working on the hinge movement, we want to get the cello bass to use the proper movement, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to touch the fingers to the collarbone and rock just like this. The important thing is that they're not using, I've seen cellos try and do a wrist vibrato like that. It's so silly. Or some, what they do is they clamp their thumb so tight against the neck that the only vibrato that they can really manage is an upper arm twist like this. Actually, my 15-year-old son does this, and I have to remind him constantly to get the arm involved. What you need to do is get the arm involved in that vibrato. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So the way the book is designed, you're going to be on page 1. There's 5 exercises, 5 minutes. Seriously. Line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4, line 5. All can be done in one day. Really quick, 5 minutes, and then go on to whatever else you're working on in your rehearsal. Page 2, a little bit more advanced rhythms, but you just want to do that with no bow, just get that wrist. So in 2 days, you've done this exercise where the cellos were rocking here and the violins were rocking here. So on day 3, what we're going to do is we're going to add the bow to that very same exercise. Now let me share this again with you and see if you can see what I'm talking about here. So I'm going to go back and I'm actually going to just choose the violin book. I was using the score so I could drop the cello. But when we add the bow to these exercises, it looks like a duet. See right here? But what's happening is the bow is doing the open string, and then the arm is doing the rhythm that's written up here at the top. Now, for some reason, when you combine the bow open strings with the movement, boy, that throws kids for a loop. And that's why I've done it right here. You practice the movement without bow, and then you add the bow with that same movement. We don't have fingers on the string. We're just getting the wrist or the elbow moving, and then for cellos we're getting that rock in there. For bass we're getting that rock. So let's take a look at this.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Woolstenhulme. I'm the author of Vibrato Basics. I wanted to talk about page 4 and 5 in the violin and viola book. Page 4 and 5 are just a continuation of the technique we learned on page 2 and 3. The difference is, now that we've mastered the wrist hinge for wrist vibrato or the elbow hinge for arm vibrato, we're going to add an extra layer of complexity by adding the bow. It will be difficult to coordinate the bow movement with the vibrato movement. It's really important that we learn to do this. So watch as I demonstrate line 13 with wrist vibrato. Moving my wrist to the upper bow of the instrument, I place my bow on the D string, and this is what 13 looks like. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and rest, 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 rest. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and rest, 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 rest. Notice that I was bowing during the rest. The rest indicates the stopping of the vibrato motion, but not the stopping of the bow motion. Let's look at line 16. I'm going to try line 16 with arm vibrato. So I'm going to switch the bow to the A string, and I'm going to use triplets. 1 lolly, 2 lolly, 3 lolly, 4 lolly, rest, 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 rest. 1 lolly, 2 lolly, 3 lolly, 4 lolly, rest, 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 rest.
Now, a lot of these exercises, maybe you've seen teachers bring in props like egg shakers and all. I have too many students in the classroom, actually not right now because of the pandemic, but typically, I mean, I'll have 50 kids in the classroom at one time, and I just don't want to bring in egg shakers for everybody. I really think that you can just practice this motion around the instrument without, but the important thing is to keep the class rhythmical. And like I said, in the book, either you can say the rhythm for the students or you can make the students say, but someone needs to do it. I personally don't like to do all the work. I think the students in the classroom should be doing the work, and they should be saying the counts along with it. So week 1, basically you've done one exercise, 2 days without the bow and 2 days with the bow. So like I said, 5 minutes a day, then go on to the literature that you're working on, etc. I would not just do these exercises for 45 minutes. I can tell you one time I was invited to do a 45-minute workshop with students on vibrato exercises. And by the time, they're doing this for 30 minutes, they're tired of it. 5 minutes, move on, okay? And that repetition will just build and build. So now we're on to week 2. We're going to learn a new exercise. And I call this a stationary thumb exercise. And we'll just advance here a couple of pages and show you what I mean. So now, this boy is kind of exaggerating the amount of airspace that you need between the knuckle and the neck. But it's really important that they're not squeezing the knuckle against the neck. I call this the vibrato killer. And let's just watch and see what I do.
Hi friends, Jeremy Woolstenhulme here with Vibrato Basics. Today we'll be talking about page 6 and 7 in the violin and viola book. The key concept today is to get the knuckle away from the neck. Let me show you what I mean. Some violins and viola players squeeze the hand against the neck, and I call this the vibrato killer. You can't vibrate when it's pressed against the neck. So today we're going to try and get just that airspace between the neck and the knuckle. Watch as I perform the arm vibrato for number 22. It's going to look like this. Hover the fingers over the neck, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Did you notice how my knuckle was just an air space away from the neck? Get those fingers the best you can over the string. Let's try number 23. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. The reason we have so many different variable speeds in this is because I want to be able to control the speed of my vibrato. I want to have an artistic vibrato that can change speeds, not just be one speed. These exercises will help you master different speeds. If you're going for a wrist vibrato, hover your fingers over the string and bend from the wrist. Watch as I perform 22. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and.
So it's really important to me that they feel this flex thumb, I call it, where the depending on the hinge, if they're going for arm vibrato, that the elbow is just moving the arm, but that thumb is the anchor, right? It's really going to keep it. So they're going to feel that flex. And of course they don't want to squeeze here. So I hover the fingers over the string and I'm going for that kind of motion and that rocking motion. So they're going to do this for 2 pages, 5 minutes a day. And the cellos, what are the cello bass going to do at this point? Well, you know, I typically don't vibrate with my thumb touching the neck, but I think this at this point, just to mirror what the violins and violas are doing, I touch the thumb to the neck to anchor, and then I'm still going for that arc shape. So basically you can think of the pinky coming down to the string and the index finger coming down to the string. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So they'll do that for 2 days without bow. And then what do? We add bow. So here we go. D string, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, you heard me say in the video why I vary the rhythm. First of all, the rhythms, you know, I say this to teachers, it's not so much mastering the rhythm, although it does help the students with their counting and the rhythm. It's about hinge movement. So as I go around, I really want to concentrate on whether they're doing the right movement more than whether the rhythm is right. I've had teachers ask me, well, which way do you go first, up or down? It doesn't matter. Really, you're going for movement. This is what you're really watching the students. So thumb is going to be stationary, and we're going to rock. Now, in that duet line, either I've written A string, G string, you know, so G, we would go 1 lolly, 2 lolly, 3 lolly, 4 lolly, rest. Now it feels weird to play on the rest, but we're going to. And I think that's important, that start and stop of the vibrato. We need to learn that, you know, just so we don't get that twitchy, spastic vibrato, right? We need to slow and relaxed here. 1 lolly, 2 lolly, 3 lolly, 4 lolly, rest, 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 rest. 1 lolly, 2 lolly, 3 lolly, 4 lolly. So there it is, week 2. Week 1, we're just getting the movement. Week 2, we've got the stationary thumb, and we're really working on bending that thumb and making sure everything's working there. So now, 2 weeks have gone by, and we've done 2 different exercises. Now let's go on to week 3. And this, I call it the Purfling exercise. So what we're going to do is have the kids go up to the purfling of the instrument. Oops. Well, shoot, I'll just show you right here that the purfling is that black stripe around the instrument. Now, it's a great place to lock that finger in place. Now, this is actually the first time in the book that we've been using a finger. Before this, it was just free motion right here. But now we're going to feel that, you know, whether it be the wrist rocking the finger or the arm rocking the finger, the students need to feel the rocking motion of the finger, right? Because that's what vibrato is about. And I like the purfling groove because it keeps that finger in one spot. Now, I like to choose a middle digit, either second or third finger. I think that balances out the hand very nicely. You can choose either. So the motion is basically going to and away from the head. Now, thumb placement. I like to put the thumb at the side of the neck. I've had another teacher tell me that she actually likes to place the thumb here on the button, here on the back. Now, when I heard that, I liked it immediately because when I place my thumb on the button, it actually gets my elbow under the instrument more. And quite honestly, anything to get the elbow under the instrument more, you know, instead of students playing out here. So as it's in the purfling, you'll do those exercises 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now, cello bass are going to be slightly different. They will also find the purfling, but instead of going like violin like this, you're going to do the same rocking motion like this. 1 lolly, 2 lolly, 3 lolly, 4 lolly, that kind of motion, where it's rocking sideways versus the violins who are actually coming toward the instrument. So cello bass are going to be a sideways motion like this. And then we do that for 2 days, making sure the motion's really good. And what do? We add bow. Now at this point, I actually vary it so the students will change strings. They'll 1 lolly, 2 lolly, 3 lolly, 4 lolly, then they'll go to A string, 1 lolly, 2 lolly, 3 lolly, 4 lolly, 1 lolly, 2 lolly, 3 lolly, 4 lolly, 1 lolly, 2 lolly, 3 lolly, 4 lolly. That can be a little challenging for them, but you know, we're just trying to mix it up a little bit and challenge them. So that's week 3. It's called the purfling exercise, where they will feel the rocking motion of the hand. So now we're on to week 4. Okay, now we're almost at a month, and the kids are getting really good at their wrist or arm motions. So you know, here we are at page 14 already in the book. Now this is called the polish exercise, and you know, this is fairly common polish motion. What you're going to do is you're going to place the thumb here, and you're going to put the fingers onto the string, and you're going to do little slides about this much. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and you can choose various strings. It doesn't actually in the book indicate which string you should do, so if they want to try different fingers, or that would be great. Like I said, I usually tend to pick 2 or 3 because it balances out the hand really nice. And they're just going to do little slides. Wrist vibrato, they're going to go up to the upper bow and they're going to slide here. Okay. Cello bass, we're going to polish just like this. And the thumb should not be in one place. It should follow the hand as you polish. 1 lolly, 2 lolly, 3 lolly, 4 lolly. And actually at this point in the book, I actually go to 16ths for the first time. All those other exercises, I did not do 16ths. I felt like it was too fast. But with the polishes, I actually think it's great. So we actually get into 16th notes. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. And I like that speed. Now when we add the bow, you can imagine what's going to happen. It's going to sound a little bit scary because you're going to get these, well, I'll show you, I'll grab the bow. You're going to get this kind of harmonic gliss type of sound. So 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Now, when you do that with the whole class, I get a bunch of laughs and giggles from the kids, and I just say, hey, we're practicing our Halloween music, and especially with the violins, you know, for arm vibrato, you're gonna have the kids basically up here in the first position. And for wrist vibrato, they're going to be up here in like a fourth position. So they're not even doing the same pitch. So you do get Halloween music, and it does scare the kids a bit. Here, I'll share a student demonstration of that. So here we are adding to polish, right? And like I said, we'll switch strings. That's what's happening here. So when I'm polishing the D string, my fingers are on the D string. When I'm polishing the A string, my fingers are on the A string. We'll just watch a student demonstration of that.
1 lolly, 2 lolly, 3 lolly, 4 lolly, 1 lolly, 2 lolly, 3 lolly, 4 lolly, 1 lolly, 2 lolly, 3 lolly, 4 lolly, 1 lolly, 2 lolly, 3 lolly, 4 lolly.
And like I said, the students, they'll freak out. They'll say, oh my gosh, what is that Halloween music? And again, this is the first time right here on this page is the first time on line 76. That's the first time we've seen 16th notes. And they'll switch strings in that. So now we're on to week 5, finger rocks, okay? And I'm breaking a pattern. Before I always had 2 pages of no bow and then 2 pages of adding the bow to that same exercise. Now I'm breaking a pattern. I just have this exercise down and I say, look, try it without the bow first and then add the bow using whole notes. So what we're going to do is we're going to rock the string and the finger is actually going to be planted. Now, you'll notice that the violins are in 3rd position because if we're using this vibrato book, I am assuming, if you'll notice that we color-coded it green, if they're using the vibrato book, I'm assuming that they've already had about 3 years of instruction. This is the advanced book. So they already know they're shifting. They already have good, solid intonation. And so this 3rd position here is not going to surprise them in any way. I mean, these vibrato exercises are not for beginners. However, you can, I call it dangle the carrot. You know, beginners, they always want to learn vibrato. So, you know, if you walk in the class and you're seeing a student just squeeze the heck out of the neck of the violin, you can say, hey, let's relax that. Or if you see the thumb white right here, hey, let's relax that, loosen that up, because if you're squeezing the instrument, you won't be able to get a nice, gorgeous vibrato. And let's face it, that's what all the kids want to do. They want to get that gorgeous vibrato. So we're up here in 3rd position on this G. We're up here on this G, and we're going to rock it 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Then when we add the bow, it's going to sound very much like a wah-wah sound. I call it wah-wah. Okay, and what that's going to sound like on the cello here is and on this page, basically, I just have them go up a G major scale. A G major scale for violins, they're going to be in 3rd position. And so the reason they're in G major scale, so they'll rock that first finger, and when they're done rocking that first finger, they'll go to 2nd finger, right? So they do that line, and then they on to the next line. etc. So they're learning that rocking motion, and that's really important. Now, at this point in the book, about page 18, I slow the pace down. Remember I told you up to this point, I was a page a day. Well, there's a lot more than 5 lines on this. So, you know, I would slow the pace down. Maybe 2 days on this page, 2 or even 3 days on this page, getting the rocking motion. So at this point in the book, I would definitely slow down the pace. Now, especially when you hit page 20. This is such a pivotal moment in the book. I call it a pivotal moment in the book because this is where the students are going to transition from the sliding exercises to an actual vibrato. So what's going to happen is I say get the motor running, right? And I chose B flat, so it's a middle finger right here, balanced finger. So get the motor running right here with triplets, 1 lolly, 2 lolly, 3 lolly, 4 lolly, and then plant. So you could think of it as I've combined the last 2 exercises, the exercise of polish and then the exercise of that rock, wah, 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 wah. Now I'm combining. So I'm going to start getting the motor running, getting that motion exactly the way I want it. 1 lolly, 2 lolly, 3 lolly, 4 lolly, plant. And then back to polish, because sometimes they'll start spasming or whatever, have something that's not rhythmical, you know? You want to keep it slow and rhythmical. So 1 lolly, 2 lolly, 3 lolly, 4 lolly, plant in one spot. And then plant. And get that nice, slow, rocking motion. So polish, right? Then plant. And that's what they're going to work on right there. So now, we're, like I said, slow the pace down. Take several days to work on this, polish to plant, because it's really, really, really a pivotal moment in the book. Pivotal moment in the book. So here we are. We move up to 16th notes. 1 eanda, 2 eanda, 3 eanda, 4 eanda, and then just let it rock. Let it rock. Right? Just let that rock for 3 measures. And then this page, what we'll do, I call it the speed up. So you'll notice we do a G major scale with the 8th notes, wah, 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 wah. And then we do G major scale with the triplets, da, 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 da. G major scale with the 16ths, and then a slow rhythmical vibrato. Now, honestly, for cello bass, when they're doing the 16th notes, a lot of times this is so close to an actual vibrato that it actually will start breaking out into a vibrato. Don't discourage that. Say, oh, don't be insistent that it has to be exactly that 16th. You know, if it starts nice, even rhythmical vibrato that's around a 16th pulse, that's perfect. That's exactly what you're going for. Can I tell you that you know, when I was learning bass, I tried to play in a community orchestra, and the actual bass players, they kind of laughed at me and they're like, you got cello vibrato, meaning that the speed of my vibrato was just too fast for the bass. The bass strings are so low and they fluctuate like this, meaning you have to reciprocate that with the speed of your vibrato. You don't want to have an intense fast vibrato for a string that's moving like this. Now, that can be said with the violin too. You know, if you're playing up high on the E string, you've got to match that intensity or the rate of the string. So back to this. And being able to control your speed of vibrato is such an artistic thing to do. That's why I stress these changing rhythms within the book. So here you are with and then you go up to triplets. And then 16th notes, so you'll be even faster. And then, of course, 1/16 should be a nice, steady, consistent vibrato. Nice and slow. Nice and relaxed, nice and even. But like I said, with the string, I want the kids to be able to control their vibrato. So the next page after this speed up scale, what do I give them? I just give them long tones to practice on. You're just going to practice these long tones and get the nice, even, steady vibrato. And we're just going to play through different tones. And then what do? We got long tones, but they're moving. So we're going from B to C sharp to D to E. We're moving, but keeping that steady, steady vibrato. After we've done that for a while, now it's still that slow pace, but I want them to start increasing the speed of their vibrato. This is really, really important to become really fluent with vibrato, because you know it depends on what you're playing, whether you want a speed. Soloists have, you know, sometimes that fast, intense vibrato. Orchestral players, sometimes it's more relaxed, so it blends better. But you know, so start here with a slow vibrato. Slow, wide vibrato. And then increase the speed just a little bit. See if you can get it going faster. And then more tight. And you want to increase the speed and rate of the vibrato. And I do that with different exercises where with crescendos and indicating that they should have mastery of their vibrato. Now I'm going to take you to another exercise that I think is really important here. And this is senza vibrato. Senza vibrato meaning no vibrato. And I came up with this lesson because as I would see like soloists play these gorgeous, for example, like in the Haydn cello concerto in C major in the second movement, you know, I've heard these solos where they start no vibrato. No vibrato. And then they speed it up. Oh, that wrong note there, but you see my point, where you stop and then you speed up. So right here, sense the vibrato, then slow vibrato, a little bit faster, really faster, and then I kind of back that up with air on, this air on the G string. I actually show soloists the clips. There's so many soloists out there playing this song, and they almost 100% of them start with no vibrato. So it's so beautiful where they start with that no vibrato, add, crescendo. Now, in class, I have to admit this bowing is impossible for my students. So we actually have changed it to down bow. And then somewhere in here, we changed to up bow, because that is so hard to increase crescendo, increase the speed of your vibrato all on one bow stroke. That's real artistry. And so we're not quite there yet. So we actually start with a down bow and then increase it just on this first note. The rest of it's fine bowing wise. So I just want to show one more thing. And this is the song that you've been hearing at the beginning of all those videos. The last song in the book is actually just a orchestral arrangement that I did. So the violin part is in the violin book, the viola part's in the viola book, and the cello part is in the cello book, etc. So that this song is what you've been hearing. So I just want to give some parting thoughts about vibrato. First of all, there, you know, in the vibrato book, there's a lot of songs that they can play. And, you know, you think to yourself, well, why can't I just play songs in other books? And that's true, you can. But the songs, there's something mentally that happens when you take out your vibrato book and put it on the stand and open up to a song. What am I working on? Well, I'm working on my vibrato. And so 5 minutes a day in the vibrato book helps trigger them to do vibrato. I mean, I've conducted orchestras where most of the kids can do vibrato, but sometimes they don't. And I have to remind them, vibrate, vibrate, let's build here. Well, taking out the vibrato book, they'll be ready for it. They'll, okay, we're working on vibrato. Another thing that I want to say is be consistent. You know, I know sometimes we go here and there, but if you work on the vibrato book for 5 minutes a day, I really can guarantee you by the end of the year, most of your students will have beautiful vibratos. Okay, I wish I could say all, but the truth of the matter is in the orchestra, not all the kids are always playing the notes. So, you know, almost all of those kids will have nice vibratos. And I can tell you, 50 to 60% of your orchestra with nice vibrato will change the sound of that group. I mean, you won't even recognize it. From an orchestra that doesn't use vibrato to 50, 60% of the kids using vibrato, oh my gosh, it changes the nature and the sound of that whole orchestra. And 5 minutes, it's worth that. It's worth that to change the whole sound of your orchestra. I want to thank you for your time. I've just had a great time talking to you about vibrato. And I really hope that I can come to Australia. That would be awesome next year.
Jeremy, that was fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing so many of your hints and tricks in teaching vibrato. The one thing that I really admired was that all those exercises are building up control. And that is what you want. You want control of these skills. You don't want an uncontrolled mess, because that you'd rather have no vibrato, I think, sometimes. We do have a few questions coming through. First of all, people are admiring the fact that you play more than one instrument. So people have actually asked what instruments you actually play.
So I'm a cellist. Yeah, cellist.
And we were talking about this just before the webinar started, and you were saying that you learned violin as a young man, so that also just to assist with your teaching. What about double bass?
Yeah, so it wasn't until college, the uni, as you like to say, the university, where I started playing the bass, and it was hard to wrap my head around it, you know, with the force and everything. But I really like playing the bass very much. There's something about the bass section in back that are always the coolest people in the orchestra. So I wanted to learn and join in. So I do enjoy playing the bass. And like I said, I mentioned that I played in a community orchestra to improve my chops just a little bit. Yeah.
Great. Can you tell us at what level are your students at when they start on developing their vibrato?
Yeah, so the classroom teaching that I have most experience with vibrato is at a grade when I taught at the middle school level. And now that I'm teaching at high school, quite honestly, I only taught there 2 months before it all shut down to the pandemic. And although I assign vibrato exercise, I'm sure that, you know, we're going to have to relearn it when they get back. So let me talk about my middle school experience, because that's where I have most of my experience. So year 3 is where I would introduce the vibrato. And like I said, they've been through the books, the string basics books. They've been through book 1. They've been through book 2. They've been through a good portion of even starting that book 3. And once I feel that they're ready for this vibrato book, then we'll start into the exercises. And you know, just about the time that they're learning the shifting is in the vibrato book, where they'll start shifting, because a lot of the exercises you're doing without shifting, you know, just doing the exercises. So I would say that this is a great companion with book 3 of the vibrato basics, because, you know, they're both color code green.
Great. Excellent. Do you have any tips for developing the 4th finger vibrato for violinists?
That's it. You know, no tips. I think you got to get your arm around. I was mentioning that with the, with the button push, just get that arm around and get really nice relaxation instead of a stiff pinky, right? We want to, if we get the arm under, we're going to have more curve to the pinky. And again, it's about 5 minutes a day repetition. You know, it is not a one, okay, you know, give them this pill today and they've got vibrato tomorrow. You know, keep the exercises. And there's plenty of exercises with fourth finger and plenty of, you know, chance to use that and rock it.
What about students who are hypermobile, so hyperflexible perhaps, with their joints? Do you have any tips?
You know, I've seen it before, but I don't know that affects the vibrato too much. But you know, when I would teach the beginners in cello, and they'd often not have the muscle strength for the rounded fingers, you know. And I even had when I first started cello had a collapsing finger. But I think they can build up that strength as they really play more and build up the strength within the fingers. Is that what we're going for?
I think so. I think it's everyone is a little bit different with their joints.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is one thing that we all know as teachers is there is no set answer for some of these kids.
Do you have any tips for thumb position and cello? Vibrato on thumb position.
You know, this exercise we were doing in the Purfling is almost like a thumb position vibrato, because you're right, it's not the same as this. It's more of a diagonal vibrato. I bet that this Purfling exercise might lend to the more sideways. But you know, to be honest, in my classroom experience, I haven't got to that point where I've ever had to address that. So I hope to with my new high school.
That's awesome. What about the height of the left elbow on the cello and the way it works with the vibrato?
So, well, you know, you don't want too high of an elbow. Absolutely. Some kids overcorrect, and of course you don't want it too low. So, you know, just relax that elbow. And then, of course, with any kind of shifting, you want to raise the elbow to get around. With thumb position vibrato, you know, you gotta get that elbow around, and getting the elbow around just drops the hand to facilitate any kind of shifting. So elbow level does matter, but you know, this is going to affect it. So too high, definitely not too high. You know, bring it back a natural position to it.
Yeah. Here's a question about violin and viola. At what point do you encourage violin and viola students to use a combination of arm and wrist vibrato, and the varying of these combinations to create a wider variety of different tonal colors?
Wow, that's quite a question. Now, I hope they don't mean a combination at the same time. I hope they mean used by, you know, the wrist vibrato and then the arm vibrato. They can use both. You know, I've told students who, when we start with the class, there are some students who've taken private lessons who already can do a great wrist or arm vibrato. And I say, look, we're going back to the beginning of these vibrato exercises. If you want to try and learn a new vibrato, you know, if you want to try and master your arm, I don't know if you saw the girl that I was using that student demo, but she was fantastic. We told her, we're like, okay, will you show us a wrist vibrato? Now do an arm vibrato. And she could switch between the two really great to do our demo videos. I was really pleased with that. So I do tell the students, hey, look, you can work on both if you want, but yeah, at what point do I encourage both? I actually don't ever really encourage both. I have no problem saying, hey, let's learn both. A lot of violin, viola players can do both. I don't say that there's a point where, because I think that's more for, how do I say it? Like more private pedagogy than the orchestral pedagogy that I'm giving. Mine is more you know, here all the instruments are going to learn vibrato at one time. You know what I mean? And so we're getting that general good vibrato from across the board with all the instruments. I think that might be a more specific, you know, more advanced is what I'm trying to say than even this book. Yeah.
I agree with you. I think it's often going to come down to the individual student. And I think it's also going to come down to the piece and the context with which you're doing vibrato, because, you know, it's going to change where you are on the instrument. It's going to change according to the color you want. And so people have to make a lot of personal decisions themselves in terms of their music. Do you have any tips for double stopping vibrato during double stops?
Whew. That's hard for me today. Even getting those double stops in tune, man.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't. I'm sure there's good ways.
I think a lot of it is about the balance of the weight of the fingers, right? To make sure that it's even, so that you can control both fingers rather than just one.
You know, I mean, within the cello bass are definitely different here. With double stops, we have to bar, you know. But violin and I guess viola, I don't know, I haven't done, but with double stops, you know, you could put your finger in the middle in between the two strings and rock it pretty effectively, I would imagine. So I think cello and bass is completely different than what violin and viola would be. So I mean, you're a violinist, James. Do you vibrate with double stops with the finger between the strings? It seems like that would be.
You know, I actually have to think very carefully about what I do. I think it's going to change according to the actual double stop itself, I think, and the strings and the angles of my fingers. But again, I'm often going to be thinking about the weight of the fingers to make sure that they're even for control and not too much tension.
Yeah, I guess I was really talking about fifths, even, you know, double stop with fifths. Those are, oh man, really tough.
We don't like those at all. Jeremy, we're rapidly running out of time, and I'm sorry I haven't got to everyone's questions. I was just, some people have asked, how do they get access to the web section that you were just showing us? So do they get access to that through purchasing the book, or how does it work?
Absolutely. So, you know, the String Basics books used to come with DVDs. And as that technology fastly became antiquated, the idea was to create this interactive practice studio where we could embed all the video, all the audio, all the media that you needed, just embed it into a virtual book. And that way we could even add more videos. Those videos that we saw with me teaching were actually added after the book was published. You know, they thought that it would be better to have me teaching each concept, which I thought was a great idea. So those were embedded later. What you do, it's absolutely free with the purchase of the book.
That's great. Jeremy, we're almost out of time, and I do appreciate the fact that it's very late at night on a Saturday night where you are. So on behalf of OSTER and Kjos Australia, I would like to thank you for all of your ideas and enthusiasm and for staying awake for us here in Australia. I think as well, this is a fantastic taster for us here in Australia to know what you'll be presenting at our national conference next year. So I think that's very exciting. For everyone watching, I'll just remind you all that an edited version of today's presentation will be made available soon on the Kjos Australia YouTube channel, and links will be made available to you. I'd like to thank Kjos Australia and Jeremy especially for today's presentation. I hope you've all enjoyed it and it's made you think very carefully about how you approach vibrato with your students. Thank you everyone for coming today.